Professor Paolo's presentation for us this morning is titled Eco-Village Model of Sustainable Living for a Post-Pandemic World. Let's welcome Professor Paolo, Vincenzo, Genovese. Professor Paolo, please.
Thank you very much. Now I'm going to share my screen. Can you see the screen now?
Yes, we can.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me. It's a big honor to be with all of you. My presentation is quite long, so I try to be fast as possible because the topic is quite complicated. Today I want to discuss with you about eco-village and what is an eco-village and how the eco-village can become the model for the sustainable living in the future. We all know that the pandemic changed our conception of life, and then let's see in which way we can discuss the idea of eco-village as a possible, I cannot say global solution, but at least can give some good direction for our future. This is the division of I have 17 sections in my presentation. And first, we have to introduce some key concepts about eco-village. First of all, eco-village is not necessarily a place which is related on rural, but it can be also urban eco-village and also can have some characteristics, for example, as an eco-district. But in fact, what I understood in this difficult matter is that the eco-village is mostly a concept based on self-sufficiency, limited ecological impact, and sustainability. Because the eco-village is not something related on technology only, because we can have a high-tech, middle-tech, low-tech, I think that the eco-village is mostly related on a social approach. So, and because it is a social approach, that is exactly the matter of our topic today, in which way the eco-village as a social approach can become a solution for a certain kind of case in the future of our world. In fact, the eco-village is mostly a human being aggregation. Sometimes, most of the time, there is some concerning, there are some relationship with the rural characters, and a key point it is also agriculture. But we must pay attention because sometimes that is not all the cases of eco-village are related on rural and agriculture. Definitely is a key point. Another very important issue about eco-village is zero emission. Now, the zero emission, we all know what does it mean today. There are buildings, but even districts. Now the challenge is not anymore about building, zero emission building, but zero emission district. There are building and district which is able to survive, which are full functionality for the modern life, but without any emission, without absorbing energy from the non-renewable energy, without a release, shall we say, waste, and especially hazardous waste. So the key point here is a recycle and the reuse of energy, materials, and in general, all the things that we use daily. Once again, low-tech is one special characteristics of most of the eco-village. It is also true that we have a top-end, high-tech eco-village, but in most of the cases, according with the general development of the eco-village today, we are talking about low-tech. Another very important point of the eco-village is, and to me personally, this is the key point of the eco-village, is a community of people, which it means a free association of individuals, which for a certain kind of decision, shall we say, they decide to bring together their life and share a new form better. To be totally honest, the eco-village is a quite ancient settlement, ancient way of living. So shall we say that the eco-village is bring back what it is, the social community in the past centuries. So community of the people with the same goal. What it is very important, it is a free association. All of those people are based on on an idea of sustainability with a limited ecological impact, and especially, this is also another key point of the eco-village, self-sufficiency. One idea that could be a misunderstanding most of the time, it is eco-village. It doesn't mean uncomfortable life. What it is quite important, it is full featured settlement to have a harmonious life in between people to people and people to environment. This one are famous definition from eco-village by a key scholar in this sector, which is Robert Gilman. Again, we have some keywords, something like human scale. Human scale, it is a key point also in my personal understanding, because sometimes our cities are no more human scale. They are too big, too complicated, and too much luxury and energy consuming. So this is why the lesson from the eco-village could be quite important for the future life. And it is also interesting the fact that the eco-village is no more like in the ancient time, settlement divided into the territory, but they are, thanks of the new technology, we can discuss the idea of a cluster of village, network of village, is what is going to happen today, for example, with the GAN, the Association over Internet, related on the eco-district, eco-village, sorry. A common element, which is quite important in every eco-village, it is sharing decision-making. In most of the cases, especially in the Western country, the eco-village is based on no more on top-down or even not bottom-up decision-making. It is a sort of sharing decision-making with where everyone agree on the same matter. So the complexity of the decision making in the eco-village is quite high, but it's strange that it works most of the time. The traditional lifestyle is another element, but the traditional lifestyle could be misunderstood. The traditional lifestyle doesn't mean to come back to the trees like a monkey. It simply means to have a sort of traditional way of interaction in between people. And traditionally, it doesn't mean to don't use sophisticated technology, because in the pandemic world, the sophisticated technology, something like video conference and so on, are quite important. So to use the tradition, the innovative technology in terms of traditional relationship in between human beings. Other key point from Jonathan Dayson, which is also another very important scholar in this matter, it is the idea of sustainable communities, which is based on self-reliance in between members. Some centers are based on spirituality, which is not really a point which is related on every eco-village. But spirituality, which doesn't mean religion, a sort of spirituality is also a trend, in trade union in between different eco-village. Co-housing, it is also a very interesting element, which is mostly based on a cluster of households which share the same facilities in order to save money and save space. Important is the small scale. I remark again this issue. And in this list, it is intermediate technology. In my personal opinion, intermediate technology can be substituted with another concept that I will illustrate later, which is called multi-scale approach. This is in this slide. I only want to point out a few elements because it's quite complex. For example, appropriate system, not only in transportation but in technology. Appropriate technology is one element which I will illustrate later, which basically means which kind of technology are suitable for the local environment. That is quite important for us. This is other center that we, my team and myself, introduced in the idea of eco-village. Permaculture is quite important. Permaculture design is a very ancient form of agriculture, which is also could be also suitable for the urban agriculture, by the way. Local material, for example, 0 kilometer material is quite important. Generate power energy off grid, the use of renewable energy, every kind of renewable energy, Self-sufficiency of food. This is a controversial point because I lived in some eco-village in past years for some time. And when I mean self-sufficiency of the food, I mean that the food have to be, the diet have to be very basic. So if we want fancy food from different countries of the world, good sushi, or good Italian food, then it could be a problem, because in this kind of settlement, the quantity and the quality of the food have to be very basic. Participatory decision-making is also a key point in my understanding. In many eco-village, it seems strange, but it is a reality in many cases, there is no leaders. Eventually there is a representative, eventually there is a president, eventually there is some person who has more influence on the decision, but in that case it is more related on experience. It is more related on background more than authority. This is quite important in terms of decision making for this small community. There are three main points which is quite important in the eco-village. For example, we must cancel the idea of waste food. We must use the idea of use current solar income, and especially celebrate diversity. This kind of concept, it is I think it is common in our consideration in the eco-life in general, but then finally it's a little bit tricky, because even if everyone understands this kind of concept, then it's very hard to achieve. These topics introduce the idea of circular economy. Circular economy, which is this is one logic diagram that we created in the direction of the eco-village. If you want copy, please, you're free. It is a logic map. This kind of logic map are quite complex, because I personally don't believe in simple structures. In my understanding, the reality is quite complicated, so we have a lot of overlapping. This is a quite important concept in our theory, in our study. It is what it is called multi-scale approach, MSA. The multi-scale approach, it is a sort of integration in between different elements in order to find the right strategy according with the local context. These strategy have to consider economy, climate, local culture, local technology, and much more, actually. What does it mean, multi-scale approach? If the question is, for example, in which way we have to intervene in a certain context, for example, build an eco-village, or which kind of technology we have to use, there is no an ultimate answer. Many cases, the eco-village are considered rural, so cheap, low-tech, self-construction, and so on. In fact, it's not so easy. The eco-village mostly means understand the local context and choose the right strategy, include the technology, according with the context. So if we have to build, for example, an eco-village in Beijing, Milan, Los Angeles, it doesn't matter, New York, then we have no problem with technology. We can have a complex technology, expensive, eventually financed by some rich guy. It's perfectly fine. In other contexts, the eco-village have to choose middle or even low or very low tech. It depends on the local context. For example, recently we are doing with my team and myself, we are doing the project of toilet revolution in China, and also poverty alleviation in China. And in a certain kind of context, the technology must be simple, but much more simple than you can imagine. For example, there are situations for the water recycling. We know very well that it exists some machine for the water recycle. It doesn't cost so much. It is just switch off and switch on. That's it. Well, In a certain kind of context, that strategy is wrong. For the fact that the machine is easy to install and operate, but in case some part is broken, in case of any kind of technical problem, local farmer, local people cannot solve the problem. So this is why the multi-scale approach have to consider several strategies, something like global local strategy, in which way the village itself, high level, middle level, low level, cheap, poor, rich, it doesn't matter, in which way the village is inserted in a much larger context. So from global to local, that is quite important. Otherwise, if we only consider local to local, we can lose the general frame and where the village it is inserted in. Multi-level, it is also a very important element. The village have to work not only at the local level, but also at the different level at the same time. This is a list. I'm not going to mention. You can copy the screenshot. You can have a screenshot if you are interested. In terms of solution for the management, in our personal opinion, all these kind of points are key points in order to settle a very good eco-village. For example, local economy. We cannot miss the idea of how the village is inserted in the local content in terms of economy, climate, geopolitics, bioregionalism, which is a quite complex and important point, education, geography, and so on. All those points in our study is quite important. Last key issue is the idea of appropriate and sustainable technology. There is a website named Appropedia, which I promote all the time. It is open source, everyone can intervene, and put some experiment of technology about how to solve local problems. Most of the cases, it is a cheap technology, self-construction, for example. Circular economy, it is quite an important element in the eco-village, I already introduced before. In terms of eco-village, circular economy and eco-village, there is, in my personal and humble understanding, a misunderstanding. Circular economy, it doesn't mean a fancy technology in order to recycle. But the circular economy, it is an issue related on local economy. And again, have to be multi-scale approach. So it doesn't exist one circular economy, but the concept of circular economy at a different level. For example, a circular economy in the poor context, in context affected by poverty alleviation program, then the circular economy has to be quite humble, has to be quite simple. But circular economy can also mean some very high tech in the right context. Circular economy, there are key definitions, something like a regenerative system. That is a quite important element in our understanding, because a regenerative system, it means we take something, a waste, for example, or a money, or labor work, and then we must reapply into the local context. That is a very powerful definition of circular economy. This is our logic map for the circular economy and eco-village. Please take a screenshot if you like. I'm going faster. Some cases of eco-village, very quickly. There are 13 European countries which have a quite strong numbers of eco-village. We are talking about 2,000 local community, and in fact there are much more, I believe. Only in Italy, which is the place where I come from, there are a simple list of very important eco-village. So it's a very successful system of life. This is 2 or 3 examples. Torri Superiori in Italy, in Liguria. It is an abandoned medieval village, very beautiful. Sorry, I'm proud to be Italian. Very beautiful as a main location in Italy, and it was occupied by a few families and generate a sustainable tourist eco-village. So the food is local, the energy is a self-sufficiency. Basically, everything is a closed cycle. but related on the connected with the world and with the system of the eco-village network. Another case, it is Santo Stefano di Sassanio in Abruzzo, a very beautiful place. And again, we are talking about an historical village with several problems of depopulation and so on. And the eco-village system helped those settlements to become more vivid. Because we are, our conference, it is very comprehensive, I also want to include a few words about high tech. In which way that no more the eco-village, but in this case the eco-community can be joined with the concept of smart city. But in terms of smart city, we have to be also very clear. A smart city cannot be, at least in my personal understanding, cannot be in balance with the local environment, cannot be low consumption of energy or resources, cannot be human scale, cannot be closed cycle concept, cannot be zero emission system. I know I'm quite against the common understanding, the common idea of smart city and sustainable city, but that is my consideration. But what a smart city could be energy neutral, can be CO2 neutral, can be waste heat neutral, can be solar thermal, can be solar electric conventional heating, hydrogen power, and it can be more food efficient. But a completely closed cycle, no, I don't think so. Is it possible to create a smart city or an eco-city based on eco-village concept? In my opinion, there are possibilities if we consider the idea of eco-district. What is an eco-district? Eco-district is a sort of urban eco-village, if we want to make it simple. It is a way to create a district which could be sustainable, and could be based on social interaction, and even can be completely independent in terms of energy use and waste recycle. Food and water recycling is also a key point. Have to be based on smart node and multi-layer connection, which is quite complex concept, which I'm not going to illustrate today. This is some element of the eco-district which can be fundamental in the design of eco-district. There are several eco-districts in the world. If we want to have some eco-district strategies, we have to consider all those points, which are quite technical, and maybe if you are not an architect, you can be not familiar with them, but it is a common practice in the design of eco-district. Very important in the idea of eco-district is the traditional neighborhood development, so the social interaction in between people inside the district itself. That is the list of key ideas. Still for the idea of smart city and eco-community, what it is quite important is the idea of to have a renewable energy for over 20%, a green building account for over 17%, and green transportation for over 65%. But there are also key indicators. We are not going into the details, but that is generally speaking the standard which is around the world. Important because we are talking about sophisticated technology is the idea of IoT technology, Internet of Things technology in the eco-district. I already illustrated some concept. The time is running very fast, so I'm not going to illustrate the details, but I want to introduce some very good example of eco-district already existing. Hammarby Lake District in Sweden is probably one of the best and one of the most advanced eco-districts in the world, and it is quite efficient. It works very, very, very well. Still in Sweden, we have a Vaxio city, is another, in this case, is not anymore a district, but it is a city which is almost completely self-sufficient. So there are cases, even with several thousand of inhabitants, which work very well. Aarhus in Denmark, it is another eco-district, eco-city, which work quite well, and it is a reconversion of a former electric power system. Circular economy and eco-district is also a quite important element. We already discussed the idea of circular economy for the eco-village, but also the level of the eco-district, the circular economy could be quite convenient, could be quite important. Again, even at the level of the eco-district, we have element of shared values, self-sufficiency, and also organic agriculture is quite important. I won't go fast. Internet of Things and eco-village or eco-district. That is, I'm not going to teach you what is the Internet of Things because it's a quite common concept nowadays. In a few years ago, it was much more unknown. Internet of Things, it is based on a real-time situation, a dynamic interaction between people and things. And could be a good idea for the tendency of the population of this small settlement, especially historical settlement. So if the question is how to integrate these ancient settlement, eco-village or eco-district in the world, IoT could be a solution. Integrated with the IoT, we have the big data, data-driven analysis, data-driven design, cellular automata, and agent in terms of management of the district and in terms of design. I must go very fast. Here there are some details. And then very quickly, some of our research, what we did in the past on this concern. We use some ArcGIS for visualization of data. We use data-driven analysis for the understanding about the use of the city by the people. We have some proposal of data-driven design, so process of designing of the city and district and architecture. And this is some other example how we use cellular automata in architecture. There are some people here in computer science, so they know better than me what is this very old technology, by the way, because it dates back on 1970s. This is some key element for the people who are not familiar with cellular automata. But what it is important is how to use a cellular automata in the design. This is one of my brilliant Korean students, which design architecture based on cellular automata. And agent-based modeling, it is also a very old tech nowadays, but we use the agent-based modeling for the analysis of the space behavior of the people. And artificial neural network, it is also a very advanced system that we are using in architecture and for the generation of building. This is a study that we did in Anhai, in Fujian. It is how the people use a Buddhist temple based on agent. This is some simulation made by one of my brilliant students from Sri Lanka, Miss Niluka. This is a paper that we write how to use the neural network and machine learning for the optimization of the climate condition in the building. Now we are also going to study the same topic for the historical Chinese building. Eco-village in the post-pandemic world. We have not enough financial support to create eco-village strategy, not only in China, but in the world. Money is always a problem. In the eco-village is a bigger problem because no one won't finance this kind of settlement. And another problem is how to use and how to choose low tech for according with the MSA strategy. Another key problem is the way of the decision making, which is not based anymore on the leadership, but is more bottom up and the sharing idea. Another problem is the maintenance, in which way the eco-village can stand for a very long time and how can provide food. But in our understanding, the eco-village could be very good solution for the post-pandemic world because it is a way how to avoid the centralization and how to be local. The pandemic teaches us how important it is to be separate sometimes, how to take care about our life, and how to be humble and how to save resources. Eco-village could be a good solution for the future of our life. So in the city, in the big city, which are affected very often by how to say, separation, by very complex management in terms of resources, well, in a possible solution nowadays is the eco-village, because they are separated, they are small scale, they are based on self-sufficiency. This is some of our publication concerning this specific topic. I think the list is not complete because we published something more in the recent years. This is a book that I published about eco-village. There is the QR code if you want to scan with the link with Amazon. It is an ebook and paper book. I'm not going to do advertisement about my publication. I'm just simply saying if you want to read more about eco-village, that is a text. And because we are in touch with the computer science department, if we want to be eco, we have to be open source. Eco-village is based on open source against the big multinational corporation, against centralization. So I also need to promote the use of Linux and new software. I'm a user of Linux since 12 or 13 years, and it works really very well for our work. This is my YouTube channel about artificial intelligence and architecture and the history and architecture. Please scan the QR code if you like. This is my WeChat, and this is the Bionic Studio where we have our activity. Thank you very much. If you have any question, very welcome. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Prof. Paolo. That was a very interesting presentation about eco-villages. And I'm really glad to hear that the concept has been adapted for the urban living context. Am I right? To become
correct. That's correct. That's correct.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Okay, I can only see one question for you, which is, what have you observed to be possible successful economic activities that can be supported by eco-villages?
Again, it depends on which level are we talking about according with the multi-scale approach. Because there are some cases of eco-village with a very strong financial support. By whom? Developers, government, high-tech. In theory, there are some house, building, or district with a top-end sophisticated technology. I remember one case in Italy, for example, many years ago, at the very beginning of internet. It was made by a very famous Italian architect, Giancarlo De Carlo, one of the masters of Italy in terms of architecture. And they take an old village, an abandoned village in the northern Italy, and they put the most sophisticated technology at that time, include internet. Now internet is normal food, but in the past it was quite brilliant, was quite very new. And in that case, there are a lot of financial support. Then finally, the project collapsed for some other reasons. But there are these kind of cases. China, for example, have a very top-end eco-village, high-tech, super cool machinery and so on. On the contrary, eco-village, which is very rural, very in a situation affected by poverty alleviation, and this is a commonplace, a common problem in every part of the world, in that case, the financial issues are very severe. But if we consider the idea of eco-village as self-construction, self-finances, local agriculture, closed cycle, circular economy, it may be possible to have a good situation, but at the condition that we forget all our fancy life. For example, I visit a very famous, it's not really an eco-village, but more like a community in US, in Arizona, made by a very famous Italian-American architect named Paolo Soleri, a student of Frank Lloyd Wright. He opened this community named Arco Santi. It's a very beautiful place in the desert of Arizona. And I was there for a couple of days. And then I went to the canteen to have our dinner. The dinner is very simple. It's very healthy, local vegetable, nice cooking, cooked by local people, so no professional chef. Frankly speaking, I must adapt myself because the American food is quite good. Especially in California, I'm a fan of Californian food. And Chicago, I eat very well in Chicago, so I'm not the Italian who is very picky. America, no, I prize American food. But that food was very simple, enough for living, with a high nutrition. But if I want fancy Japanese food, sushi, fresh food, no, then it's not. And this is valid for every form of, every side of our living in the eco-village. We must, if we want to be fresh in summer and very warm in winter, that is expensive stuff because there is no air condition, sometimes no heating. But the green building, sustainable building, especially the zero energy emission building, based on low tech, it works quite well. For sure, if we want to have a 20-degree in summer and 26-degree in winter, no, you can forget it. You know, you are in Singapore, so you have the habit to have air condition, and yes. Then maybe it's not the place for you.
Okay.
We are human, we can sweat, and that is also very healthy.
So it sounds like sustainable living has to go with, I mean, eco-villages have to go with sustainable living, right? So
it's absolutely necessary. Eco-village is based on sustainable living. The important point is sustainable living, it doesn't mean low tech. It means technology according with the local situation. So it could be very low tech, really very low tech, or super top end, like several cases. For example, there are very good examples of zero energy building based on the most sophisticated machine learning stuff, super cool technologies. But it is one specific case not suitable for some context.
Yes, totally agree. Well, we can talk more later at the panel discussion.
Thank you very much.
I think we are very much on time today. So we have completed the presentation segment of this session.